So Superior Drummer 3 is one of the best VSTs I've ever used. Very well thought out, very deeply sampled. The sound is great. The velocity layers, the mixer, the microphones, how you can edit every drum and stack it and create customized sounds, articulation stacks and drum stacks, and just really great program. So when they announced their Orchestral Percussion SDX, which is basically a huge add-on inside the Superior Drummer engine, for me it was just a real no-brainer as far as why not have really great orchestral percussion inside a drum engine that is superior in the ways that it gives you so much more capability than anything else. Why not take that advantage? So in this video we're going to discuss some of what this engine can do and why it can give you the edge in your orchestral percussion. So in the next section we're going to first explain what the Superior Drummer engine is and its capabilities, and then we'll focus more in on the actual orchestral percussion. So there's a lot to talk about. Let's get right into it, and let's just listen to some of the drums. A lot of dynamic range there, from very soft, very high, so a lot of velocity layers in there. Each drum in a kit is completely editable, and each kit is completely editable, meaning that you can take away items and add items. So let's just see how that works quickly. So if you select an item, any drum, and right click, you're given all kinds of alternatives. So you can, in this case, depending on how many packs you have loaded up in your engine, these are all available here, so that any drum in the entire engine is available in any kit at any time, with all those new articulations and ways of hitting that drum. So we can take this snare, change it to a Black Beauty, but we can also say with that Black Beauty we want to hit it with a center hit, edge hit, rim shot, side stick, rim only, side shot, slam, drag, crescendo, decrescendo, wave crescendo. Those last for a long time, so I'm not going to stick on those, but you can turn these articulations on or off. And for some of the snares or the hi-hats, you can have 20 or 25 different articulations and different ways the drummer can hit a hi-hat. From the edge, a tight edge, a loose edge, side, middle shots, all kinds of different articulations and ways of hitting each drum. Again, sometimes with sticks, mallets, rods, and whatnot. So every instrument can be added, changed. You can change the articulation, so you can edit the instrument, how it's hit, where it's hit, and what it's hit with. So there's lots of customization you can do. And say in this case, all these floor toms wasn't enough. You wanted to add even another tom in here, big floor tom down here, or whatever. You could go to add an instrument, and you could say search for, in this case, toms. And so now all the toms in your libraries are going to show up here, and there's a lot depending on how many you have. Even default comes with a lot. So rack tom with sticks, center hit, center alt hit, brushes, floor tom with brushes. So say we like that big floor tom, but there's so much to choose here in different ways with different, any kind of floor tom, any instrument in an entire library. So let's go to the one with brushes. Let's say add the instrument down here. So we bring it in, and now that instrument is here, and as if though it was in this kit, except they just put them all here so you can stack a bunch, you can add a bunch of drums. So now this one can be tuned more to, it can be completely edited to match to this kit better. So you can say to tune it up a little bit, bring up the level a little bit. Now, so you can add any instrument at any time to be played as your kit, and you can tune it and change the level. But what if I say I want to even get more specific and say with this snare, I want to stack some snare sounds with this snare. So you can also say, all right, well, you could go with the snare and you could say more, add to the center hit. Say I like the center hit, so the articulation center, which is the first one in this list, will be played. If I turn it off, it will play an edge hit. But if I turn it back on, now it's playing the center hit. If I turn these two off, it'll play a rim shot. See how that works? So you can have any articulation played at any time. But there's more to it than that. So say this center hit, I like it, but I want a little bit more snap and pop on a center hit. I can, even edit that. So I could go more, add to the center hit, and now this will give me all the options, and you just scroll down of all the options of what you can add to that center hit. So you could say, you want, well, you could try anything. Electronic, some crazy stuff, or anything you have in your library will be available. So say that's a nice punchier, poppier center hit. I can now stack on the center with this button. So it's going to stack that sound to this. So this is my original center hit. This is what I'm adding, and this is them together. So it's added some pop. And if I wanted to tune that stack item, I can make it just pop. There's no real wires in there, no nothing. It's mainly just pop. If that's too much, I can turn the velocity or the level of that down. Just give it a little extra pop. That's all I want in my customized snare. And now I get exactly what I want. For just my center hit, I have just a slightly more popping sound, totally customized, and now it's part of this kit. Now, I could also say for my edge, or any one of the articulations of this one particular drum, I can also stack and completely customize. Say the edge sound hit. Say now that isn't quite what I want. I want a little bit more pop to that, or a little bit more of a ringing sound. You can simply go to more, add to the edge, or any one of these articulations you can add to, so the edge, and now I can add different edge sounds, whatever's available on every drum. So if a drum has an edge sound, you can add it to, and it doesn't have to be an edge sound. So I could add a rim shot to the edge articulation. So let's add a rim shot or a side stick. So I'm stacking the side stick to the edge sound on this drum. So now the edge stack is down here. This is the original edge sound on this drum, but is now stacked with that sound. And again, I can turn that sound down to make it just give me what I want, a little more pop, and I can tune it higher if I want. Not loud enough. Snap. So I'm getting more snap to my edge stack. So together, original, you can hear that snap. So what I'm getting at here is really the insane ability, depth of editing available inside this engine. And so you can take your standard percussion sounds, if you wanted, and you could give them a very rocky, edgy feel in their articulations and in the instruments themselves. So I was just grabbing some of these as examples, but you could easily customize. Let's just go back to the original here. So this is the default setup. If you wanted, for example, you said to yourself, okay, it's great orchestral percussion, but I want a rocky edge to my orchestral percussion song that I'm doing. You could, easily take these orchestral drums and stack. You could take every one of these items and you could stack a rock kick drum with this orchestral big drum, right? You just go to more, add to the center of that kick and add in a rock kick drum. So my point is that you can customize your drums any way you want. Now, the Grooves tab we'll get into in the next segment. All right, so we just created, let's say, our own custom rock type of orchestral drums here. We've stacked, we've added on to these regular drums with rock kick drum, rock snares, and rock toms, and we've customized it, let's say. Then we go to Grooves. We don't have to play it, and each pack, each add-on comes with a lot of MIDI files and grooves to play it. So we don't have to play the standard orchestral MIDI grooves that come with it, even though we can listen to some here. I can listen to the whole thing, or just the bass drum, or just the snares. And each part of these, any groove in the entire libraries can be separated and dragged out on a separate layer down here, or the whole thing. But we don't have to just play the standard groove with our custom kit. We could say, okay, we just customized our orchestral drums to a rocky feel. Let's play some rocky type of MIDI grooves. So we could go to any, and since we don't like the tubular bell sound in there, because this is a rocky song, so they're not matching up with the drums specifically, but I can just say, okay, I want to play everything, so but the tubular bell. So I can, with my control key, I can say I want to hear the bass, I want to hear the snare, I want to hear the toms. No, sorry, the control key. So the bass, snare, and toms, and crash. Now let's listen to it again without the tubular bell. So now we're playing a rocky feel groove with an orchestral kit with orchestral drums. So now, with our orchestral music, we can bring in some rock elements or any soul feel, jazz feel. You can really customize what you're doing here. So if we like any one of these, let's say rocky feels with our rocky kit, customized kit, we can drag the parts that we want down into the song, a little place down here, the song track, which has its own song creator, and every time you drag in one musical idea, you can drag that up here and it'll create a whole song based on that musical groove here. It'll give you intros, fills, verses, choruses, endings, all according to how you want it in the song track. But we're not going to get into that today, but in a nutshell, any groove that you like in the entire library can be dragged down here and then dragged up to this drop MIDI zone, and it'll create a song with all the different variations, fills, endings, bridges, choruses, intro, all based off that groove. So Really powerful, fast-moving ideas here. But let's just stick with this idea, and let's say that we like this piece of MIDI, and we're going to play it, and with our customized rock orchestral up here. And so let's just play that. So we got a really nice little groove going. Really like the tom groove going there, and it's taking orchestral instruments and giving it a nice rocky flavor, and that's what we wanted. But in no way do we have to end there. So we could just say, okay, I like this part of the MIDI groove, so we can just trim it, move it, and have our looper move with it, and go back to the beginning. But the fun's only really starting now because we've taken a customized kit with now we're going to customize the groove that we've chosen to play it with. Just like we could customize every aspect of any drum here and what it's played with and how it's played, we're going to do the same thing with the groove. So if I double click on this groove, it opens up new tools and 2 new tabs, and very powerful tabs. So edit play style we're going to talk about next. So in edit play style, you've got these 2 new tabs when we've clicked on this groove, and it gives you new capabilities. It's like saying to your drummer, you can talk to your drummer and say that, well, I like what's going on here, but it's all a little bit too loud. Let's just back it down, play it lighter, and that's what we'll do. So you can select all the items that are played in this groove, and you can turn down the velocity. You say to your drummer, just back it down a little bit, don't hit so hard. Now let's play it. Now we get a totally different feel because they're all it's not as though you just turn down the volume. Since they're multi velocity layered, you're really, it's like telling the drummer just to play lighter. It's much better than turning down the volume. So when I turn down the velocity, it really is like saying to your drummer, just hit lighter. And that's why you're getting lighter hits, and it's not just a volume change. All right, that's great, but let's say that it's a little too busy. We want to make it just, sound better. So we can get rid of this symbol. We're going to highlight this symbol, and when you do, you can determine how many hits. And you can see down here the MIDI data is going to change. I don't want this symbol in here, so I'm going to turn down the amount of hits. And you can see the MIDI data be deleted here. So if I bring them back, watch that, and it comes back, more hits, more hits, more hits. Or you can take out all the hits till it turns off. Now this symbol is no longer part of our groove. But this hi-hat, we'll see how it sounds now. So I don't like the timing of this hi-hat or this cymbal. So what I'm going to do right now is just get rid of it, and I'm going to bring it back when I want it or need it. And the opening hit, I may just take that away to something else and turn that off for now. So turn the opening hit off, put it somewhere else for now. This, we may bring it back, but it's this groove is all about this tom groove here, the tom action. So the first tom, we're going to bring up the velocity. I tell my drummer, hit that first tom a little bit stronger. I want that to be the strong hit. I want the middle tom to be a little bit stronger, and the third one just be the way it is. Now let's listen to it. It should be a little clearer now. Oh, the last tom. Since I'm still highlighted, I can just leave it play and I can adjust it. Okay, so now we can decide, if we want to bring in some of the higher sounds, so of maybe a cymbal. We may say that we want one hit, but not too strong. But let's try that. And you see where that one hit showed up. Now that hit may not be where we want it. In fact, let's add another hit. But what we can do now in the grid editor, once we decide what instruments we want to play in this groove and how our drummer is going to play it, and we could say that you could pick a new item and say you want to add some of the high taiko. Say we could add one of those in there for a really strong hit in there. Let's just try that. Let's back it off. But once you decide, the rhythm, the amount of hits, and what items you want hitting, go to the grid editor. And remember, now everything's on its own line here. Even the snares articulations, if we open up the snare, this one layer here of snares has multiple sub-layers. And if I open it up here with this tab, all the different articulations are available, whichever ones you turn on. Which means that first of all, I can customize my snare, where the hits are going to be on the timeline exactly, and it gives you all kinds of cool ways to grab these notes. First of all, I can expand this, zoom it out a little further on the timeline. And how do we do that? Up here. Yes, so zoom that out with that up here. For some reason I thought it was on the bottom, but drag that out so you can see things clearer. But here's a cool bit with how you can grab. You could select each one of these and hold down your shift key and select like that, but that takes a long time. It'd be a lot quicker if we just had this tab right here, which we do, says select every quarter note and drag it down to an edge hit or a rim shot. So every quarter note is now going to be a rim shot. That's simple. So now the groove has changed because I've added more interest with adding a rim shot in every quarter note. And you could even do this again. You could say select every eighth and bring it down to just an edge. So you're really getting some articulations on your snare. It's not just a drummer just staying in one spot on the drum, hitting the same spot over and over, which doesn't really happen really. So now we're getting a lot more interesting variation. But you would take the time to really fine-tune that, and each one of these hits can be, since they're all selected, you could go down here to your dynamics and velocity and just change that articulations velocity of just that one articulation up or down. So, and you could copy it, so you could say, well, why not just copy these hits, copy notes, and then paste them over here. And this edge articulation is too loud by itself, but we can just take that articulation and drag down the velocity of those hits. So now we're just adding a very light edge articulation. The same thing with the rim shot here. Way too loud by themselves, but let's take the dynamics way down. And you can take the range of the velocity dynamics down and the velocity themselves down. So now, instead of getting really loud edge and rim shot additions, we still have all those hits up here where they were, but we're just adding accents of a little edge and rim shots. So now it should sound a lot better. And it does. So you can get exactly what you want. The articulation, you can say exactly how loud the velocity of every articulation, so that they're just accenting on every eighth and quarter notes. And with the taiko, we could say, okay, we didn't like the placement of those hits. Very easy now to place them wherever you want, in time, on grid, and quantize to wherever you want. So this is where you fine-tune everything. And the cymbals also. That cymbal, remember we didn't like it over there. We could say we want it on the first tom hit now. And you could quantize it to exactly where you want it to come in and exactly how loud the velocity is going to be with these sliders. So the grid editor allows you to grab multiple hard to select items by special selection, including triplets and different ways to select a bunch of notes at one time, and to fine-tune and add these hits and accents on any articulation of the snare. So really works well to give your drummer, instead of just playing one place on the snare, he's now moving and hitting different accents in different places on different articulations of that drum. And it also allows you to take any one of your other drums, move it in time, and line up, so that you have just the hits where you want them and how loud you want them to be. So we could start the whole thing off with the loud cymbal number 2. Let's play it again. And that's kind of a lame cymbal sound for the first strike, but we could change that to cymbal 1, and we could bring up the velocity to whatever you want. So any drum, any articulation can be moved in time, and you can add accents and really, fine-tune your groove. So we've gone from picking a groove in a style, which you can choose blues, shuffle, swing shuffle, using these different filters. But when you do find one, you drag it down to the song track, which you could create then a whole song from it using the song creator. But from there, you double click on it and you can tell your groove player, your drummer, how you want to hit things, what drums you want to hit, where the power hand is, what's going to drive the groove, what instruments. Then you go to the groove editor, which you can fine-tune every articulation, every hit, and tell, you can change the velocity, the dynamics, and the randomness of all the velocity. Because how often, do you want to do a swell where you want to select, like say you could select all of these of the snare hits, but say we wanted to ramp up the velocity of just the snare, you can do it here. You can ramp it from strong, depending on what ones you have. You can take the dynamics and squish them down to just like played by a computer or very human and you can also randomize everything for some more humanity in there. So say you just want the final little bits here to be even ramped even stronger. You can use the ramp button here to ramp that even stronger like that, and then take them all up like that. So by grabbing different notes in different places and using the ramp tool and dynamics, you can get all kinds of swells and ramps, and it just really works well. So in the next section, we're going to look at something else here. All right, so a couple of the things I wanted to mention that are worth talking about. Just like when we were making our custom drum kit, we could go to add instrument and we could do a search and just write in here hi-hat, and it would call up a bunch of hi-hats or toms, and then you could add the instrument into this kit here. You can do the same thing with grooves. So we have this extensive library of grooves and MIDI information here. There's great ways to search through it. So one way you could do it with these qualifiers here, that I could say, okay, I want a blues, some blues with shuffle, kind of a swing feel, and it will come up with all these picks here out of this library of choices, right? So, but you can also clear that out and start with a different way to search for grooves. Let's pick orchestral up here. If we pick our groove here and turn it on, and I've turned down the velocity a little bit so we can kind of hear what I'm saying over it. But say you like that general groove and it's at about 110 beats per minute. I could drag it into this MIDI drop zone here, and now it gives me the closest matches to that groove. This one is the closest at 99%, so it's almost exactly like what I first chose. Next one is 85% like it, 70%, 61%, but it gives you options that are closest to what the engine could find from what your original here. Alright, so, but you can also clear that, and you could also go back and you could say, okay, well, let's take this groove and let's do a tap to find. So if I drag it again in there and hit this button now I have a metronome going, and it's going to live record anything I tap on my keyboard or my electronic drum kit. I can play in live to the metronome and have it quantized automatically here. So I can say, okay, I like the snare, but I want to add more of my own snare hits. So I can just add to it by clicking on the snare. And so now when it comes down around, you can hear my new snare hits. But I'm just clicking it with my mouse, but on your keyboard it would be velocity sensitive. Or you can delete the snare, clear the snare, and you could try some other instruments and play live. So it allows you to create your own groove quantized in time with the groove that you originally chose. And you can turn down the tempo so you could play it in slowly and just get, you know, the kind of, you know. And then you can turn up the tempo. So anyway, enough of that, but I wanted to show you that you can start with a groove, drag it to tap to find. The system will show you the closest matches, or you can go to tap to find, where you can play it in live on a keypad, a keyboard, or electronic drum kit while it's being quantized live. And so that's some more options to find grooves and add to grooves. So tap to find, wanted to show that, and the search system with the qualifiers. Alright, so let's check out the mixer, but before we do, we're going to just get a groove here going. And let's turn down the velocity. So we'll turn down the velocity so I can talk over this, but we still have a groove playing in the background here. We go to the mixer tab, which, by the way, all these tabs can be separated and put on another monitor in full size, so you can fill your entire monitor with just the mixer if you want, or you can just have it come back to your main tabs here. So very versatile. Every tab can be put on a separate monitor. But in the mixer, we see we have all these channels to work with. Surround sound, rear height, rear, front, center, front, left, right, outriggers, the mains, and of course every instrument in the kit, and we'll turn it down a little bit more. Every instrument in the kit has its own isolated mic. So the bass drum, if we solo it, This is just the bass drum, the microphone right on the bass drum, with no real bleed from anywhere else. There's going to be maybe some bleed, but you really have the ability to isolate every instrument, but you also have the ability to add in any microphone and bleed from any of the other mics. So maybe I just want to turn on the rear height microphone, which you have to turn on here, and add the samples. You'll see it load here, but enable bleed from there. So let's see here, and these are all turned on. So the bass drum bleed, and I think because it's on solo, I would have to solo that. So that's why we're not getting the bleed. So now I'm going to solo that. So now I'm getting just the microphone that's way rear, high up in the rear of the studio or hall that is recorded in. That microphone, I'm getting the bleed because I've turned on to enable that, and I can, with this slider, mix in how much of that rear high microphone in the back I want to be as part of my mix. And same with every item in the kit. So if we turn off solo, now we hear the odd snare. We can isolate it and get just a stronger snare microphone. But we can also add in the outriggers for the snare. And, you know, you can disable bleed from other instruments. And if we wanted just to have the snare, we just enable the bleed from the snare. So now, on the outriggers, you'll see just the snare. The outrigger microphones are picking up the bleed just from the snare now. Or I can add in a little bit of the tom with this microphone. So I think you're getting an idea of how versatile this mixing system is. But let's turn off the groove and talk some more about the extensive capabilities of this mixer. So we've just talked about and learned that all instruments in your kit, which can be any drum from any kits in the entire libraries, which can be configured to any articulation and played with sticks, mallets, rods, or whatever. But now every microphone on any one of those instruments can be controlled separately, and the bleed from any one of the surround mics or the outriggers, the main microphones, far, wide, close, can all be customized for every single instrument in your kit. And also there's an full effects capability on every channel, from EQs, multiple different types of EQs, dynamics, all these compressors, limiters, distortions, all these available on every single channel, including reverbs, not just the hall sound, but extra reverbs, delays, modulation, chorus flangers, all these things tailored for drum sounds, right? All in this comprehensive mixing system that you can show, just the mix mics, you can, just the buses, you can add buses, outputs, user mics, anything that you want. You can, have different outputs. When I set up my Superior Drummer kit, I have every drum goes out to a different channel group track in Cubase so that it can be affected and controlled separately even within Cubase. So all the outputs can be changed. All the microphones can be completely edited for every single instrument in your kit. As an example, your hi-hats, perhaps in your song you want to give special attention to your hi-hat. You could give special attention to the hi-hat in the mixer by adding special microphones, turning on certain microphones that are going to enhance and really capture the hi-hat through surround channels or whatnot, and you can add a bunch of effects on your hi-hat. And of course you could go back to the drum kit itself, the hi-hat, and tailor the articulations and the drum. You can tune every part of the kit and the velocity curves of how it's played. So extremely, very, very versatile. And so that's kind of what the purpose of this video is, to show that the Superior Drummer Orchestral Percussion, of course you get all the percussion and in both libraries. So there's the main big drums, and the second part is all the smaller drums and percussions with hits and that. But you can bring in any drum from any one of your packs and the the main Superior Drummer 3 library into your percussion kits, and you can layer it and you can add to it and you can customize it. And so that's the great advantage of using orchestral percussion inside the Superior engine. The ability to edit the instruments and to give orchestral percussion flavors from jazz, blues, funk, rock, soul, anything, any type of MIDI groove that can be customized with your customized kit. It's really an extensive tool set to help you get past just the normal orchestral, the same old orchestral percussion, to your own personalized kits that have, you're not compromising, because it's fully sampled with velocity layers, and you have full surround sound in a beautiful hall. So why not take advantage of all the benefits of the Groove library, the ability to talk to your drummer in edit play style, where you can say you want to add some more hi-hat hits in there in the style of your groove, into the grid editor, where you can fine-tune every hit. And the final tab here is Tracker, which kind of adds capability, like easy bass, allows you to drag in any type of guitar or bass drums from any other MIDI library, and it will convert it to the easy bass system. Well, Tracker allows you to drag in any type of MIDI drums or live audio samples of toms or snares or full kits. You can bring in many layers and all the different tracks of your live played drums, and it will convert it into a MIDI file. So your live played drums, well, you can bring it in and it will separate it. If it's not on separate tracks already, it even can separate it to a really good extent. It will separate the kick, the hi-hat and the snares and all that into MIDI drums. And then once it's converted to MIDI, then it just becomes another MIDI file in this whole huge engine, which you can now customize any type of drum kit. And this is one of the standard, this is the standard Superior Drummer 3 kit, rock kit. So Tracker allows you to bring in any MIDI file and bring it into this engine. So the mixer, the grooves, the edit play style, the grid editor, the sounds themselves, at a price point where it's priced roughly at what would be a normal percussion library. I think it gives you a lot more capability besides just gorgeous, orchestral drums. I think it's the advantages of the Superior Drummer engine is well worth the price point. And you can also look at it like this. the Groove Engine alone, with edit play style and the grid, you know, you can take any groove, any MIDI drum groove, convert it, add to it, play live, edit, and then you can, it's all MIDI draggable and it syncs to your DAW, right? So this entire engine will sync to your DAW, or you can play it in its original tempo that these grooves came in. So that means any of these grooves that you edit and create in this engine can be used in something like any other library that doesn't have a lot of grooves with it, such as the Vienna Synchron Players Special Edition. They do have some very simple grooves with Dorado, from the BBO, but I think in this version of the Synchron Player at this stage, it doesn't come with a whole lot of MIDI libraries to play grooves with. So you may have some nice percussion inside the Synchron Player, recorded inside the Synchron stage, but nothing really to play. You could play it live on your keyboard or with an electronic kit, but why not use an engine like this, the Superior Drummer engine with the Orchestral Percussion 1 and 2, or the Action Drum library, which you could just simply, you know, the great thing is that, you know, if you like the taikos here from the Orchestral Percussion 1 library, you could drag just the groove, just the percussion or the drum, the bass drum, because it's all on layers. So as I stated, you can just grab the bass drum or the snare or the crash, and you can just drag it out onto your Synchron Player track. And now you have a bass drum that's gonna, you know, you may have customized in here. Then you can drag out a snare, and that it will be now played in the Synchron Player, so that you can actually bring grooves and hear all the beautiful Synchron percussion libraries. Because I think my dream percussion setup would be having the absolutely beautiful instruments of, say, Synchron Percussion 1 and 2 libraries, with along with the beautiful and you know, the engine to edit and to play and grab grooves from the Superior Drummer engine with the orchestral libraries, and maybe add in something like Perc X for kind of instant gratification and getting instant ideas with the orchestra or whatever. To have those three libraries would cover so much as far as your needs for percussion. So that's my kind of long-winded video on the orchestral percussion inside Superior Drummer. You get a lot more than you would normally get in a regular percussion library. And I literally kind of skipped over so much, like how you can fine-tune the velocity curve, how you can make swells and ramps and crescendos and rolls, and you can say there's no voice limit on when you're making a roll, so it's nice and smooth. And there's even a smoothing channel here, so that when you're making, you know, really fast rolls on your snares or your cymbals, there's ways to play it rough and very human, or you can smooth it out as much as you want. And you cannot, you can also have it so that there's no limit to your voices. So, you know, every sample will play every time in that very fast roll. So all these tools available, it's pretty hard to beat. Hope you enjoyed the video. We will see you on the next one.